Gentlemen, we have called you together to inform you that we are going to overthrow the United States government. Do you still think that jet fuel brought down the World Trade Center? Does anybody else see a problem here?
I told the Israelis that it would be really, really a dumb thing to widen the war in the Middle East. I told them that they could, they could really perpetrate an escalation nobody wants. And then somebody asked them, well, Admiral Mullen, couldn't the Iranians steal off the Strait of Hormuz and prevent 30% of the oil in public trade from getting out? Well, yeah, they could. That's what I'm. And then he said, well, oh yeah, but we could reopen it. Yeah, well, how are they going to reopen the Strait of Hormuz when there are about 200 guided missile patrol boats that would sink their ships? And where are they going to get the Marines to climb those cliffs? So Mullen knew which end was up, and so did Admiral Fallon, who famously told my colleague, we're not going to do Iran on my watch, and got fired for it. The problem is they're gone. They're gone. And what we have now is a bureaucrat as Secretary of Defense. And I don't know about this new general who's head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, but I knew that the fellow who was in line for it, Cartwright, was rejected mostly by my friend Bobby Gates, because Cartwright was judged to be not quite always with the program, not quite knee-jerking, not quite saluting as smartly and as quickly as we expect the military to do. So my suggestion is that the people that prevented, and this is demonstrable, Alex, I think I've mentioned this before, I can demonstrate, anyone can, just by reading Bush's book, Bush's memoir itself, that we were close to war with Iran in the end of 2007 and the end of 2008. And in a nutshell, what prevented that was an honest, that's the good news. There were honest CIA analysts around then. They did an honest estimate and came to the conclusion that Iran had stopped working on a nuclear weapon at the end of 2003. So 4 years before then.
Sure, but
now.
Sure, but here's my final question. The time we have, Ray.
Sure.
And people can read more of what you're writing at consortiumnews.com. But expanding on this, has the green light been given? Because what I've been told is the green light, Israel said we're going to try to see if they can drag the U.S. along, and that a lot of the administration tried to sell this Iran thing as a way to try to sell the public, and that if we don't get the word out on this being a fraud, they're going to go ahead with the attack. Is that what you're getting?
Yes, Obama is playing with fire here, and I don't think he realizes it. He's not in control here. Israel is. And everything, as I've said before, depends on how much of a wimp, how politically boxed in Netanyahu thinks the president is, and whether Netanyahu can face down his own generals and his own the former heads of Mossad.
All right.
It's crazy.
All right, thank you so much, Ray McGovern. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you very soon. Pray for America, pray for the world, pray for peace, pray for sanity. The consensus of experts is Israel has green-lighted an attack and is trying to get the U.S. to do it. Congressman King labels Iran terror plot act of war, says Obama should have troops on standby for a strike, not even having Israel strike. Joining us for the next 30 minutes is Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer. His bio is too long, but he ran operations trying to kill bin Laden and was blocked. He's best-selling author of Operation Dark Heart, and he dropped a bombshell 2 days ago, and we wrote an article about it at Infowars.com on Andrew Napolitano's Fox Business Show. We're going to break in a moment. We'll get kicked off here now, saying that he has an FBI Justice Department source that told him this whole plot was not in the computer system. So this isn't just experts saying it looks phony, it's fake, it's a pretext for war, a political smokescreen. He says he talked to a Justice Department official who has the clearance and said it isn't in the system and it should be. So joining us is Anthony Schaefer. Colonel, good to have you with us.
Oh, thank you for having me back. Good to be on again.
Sir, we're going to break here in just a few minutes, but let's go right to the heart of the matter after the break. Right now, what are your sources saying? Is the attack on Iran right now green light?
Well, I got to be honest with you. I just met with them again, and I went through everything one more time just to make sure everybody's clear. And look, I'm getting the same thing. There's just no information within their systems indicating the background on this, which is a huge red flag for a lot of guys on the inside. Secondly, I got to tell you, even if there's a desire, Alex, there's really very little military capability. One of the things that was revealed to me is that, yeah, there's been a call that's gone out for capability to do something, but, for better or for worse, everything is really tied up in Afghanistan right now. So, there may be some elements here who are desiring the outcome when we move forward, but I got to be honest with you, the former issue of what you said in your introduction, the issue regarding Southwest Border and the Zetas, I really think is driving the train at this point, because I don't think there's any way we could credibly put together a military capability to do anything.
Okay, some stations don't carry this first 5 minutes, so I want to come back, Colonel, and recap all of this. But did I hear you correctly? You talked to your Justice Department source, and they said, yeah, it's not in the system. And basically, if this thing did exist and wasn't a fabrication, it would be in the system, or somebody doesn't want the investigation looked at and has expunged it?
Either one of those are the options we're looking at. Absolutely. The idea is this: people who have the need to know don't have any information that they could look at, and that's incredible. Especially at this point in time, after this has been out in the news several days, there's normally a great deal of information showing how the investigation came to the conclusions it did, and they're telling me, and I talked to another expert this morning regarding the actual indictment and the details of that. The actual indictment will not hold up in a court of law, according to my expert. So basically, there's a twofer here, Alex. First, there's no credible information inside the system where people should be able to find it if they have a need to know and right to know the information. And secondly, the experts have looked at the actual indictment are telling me this is not going to hold water when it comes to trial. So therefore, and please don't get me wrong. I do believe the Iranians are a threat. There's things that they have done and are doing which threaten the country. All I'm saying is, right now, this one instance does not look to be legitimate from everybody I'm talking to.
All right, well, then the question is, I want to come back, Colonel, and we appreciate you joining us to recap everything you've said and flesh it out in more detail, and then ask, why is this coming forward now, and what's the outcome going to be? Because they're talking about cooking up new plots. Stay with us. My friends, in the last 16-plus years I've been on air, few things I've covered have been as important as we're covering right now. And I got to be honest with you, as bad as things are, you don't know who's good and bad until you get to that crisis moment. And I am heartened by the fact that I have literally, without even trying, seen more than 50 analysts, and I know there's more than that, top Clinton, Bush administrations, you name it, come out, Pentagon people, Colonel Schaefer, FBI people giving him information, Steve Pachinik, Ray McGovern, Bob Baer, coming out saying this Iran situation is totally phony. And these are people who fought Iran. These are not people that are, peaceniks or something. The point is, why has this been manufactured now? Now, Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer, best-selling author of the book they tried to redact, Operation Dark Heart, the guy that had the top al-Qaeda people in his sights, was barred from killing them, pre-9/11, the guy that was persecuted for blowing the whistle, but came out stronger on the other side, for Able Danger, a real patriot. Colonel Schaefer joins us for the next 20 minutes, and then we've got Gerald Celente joining us, and also Dr. Steve Pachinik, who worked in a lot of different black op capacities, including assassinations and overthrowing governments. He called me 10 times yesterday morning. He never, ring, till I got off the treadmill, went over and talked to him, and he said, look, they're trying to green light a war. He has all the Pentagon sources. But I was just getting some good news from Colonel Schaefer, if you missed the last segment, saying there are people that want to launch this war, but the assets aren't there. So I want to walk through this carefully. But Colonel Schaefer, take your time, because obviously that became a big national news story when you were on Judge Napolitano's Fox Business and said your high-level Justice Department source with a high-level security clearance said it was not in the computers. That sends up red flags. Specifically, what do you mean by red flags? What does this signify? You said you met with the source again today, or did you say yesterday, to make sure you were right about this now that it's such a big story? And then your incredible Pentagon connections, is this green lighted? Because I've had family officers who were just deployed. They won't tell us what it is. They say it's serious. I have other sources that said Well, yeah, you're right. We are being told, look to back up Israel in an Iran attack to get stuff out of the Strait of Hormuz. But I didn't tell you that. But I know you are high level in the think tanks and the Pentagon connections and, lecture on actual strategy level. And so your security clearance has been as high as it gets. So you've got sources I don't have. So let's walk through here for people the magnitude of this, because a lot of my sources say this is the closest we've gotten to an actual attack on Iran. And you've got Congressman King saying this is an act of war. Obama's got to get the military going. Certainly, this is the biggest drum beating I've seen. And why would they use such a faulty piece of garbage to sell this? You've got the floor, Colonel. Break it down.
Well, thank you. Well, first off, I think it is very clear that the thing that we must do, and this I've talked to a lot of folks who are of my mind, the last thing we want to do, Alex, is make an enemy of the Iranian people. The Iranian people are Persians, and frankly, they are as fed up with the theocracy which rules them as we are. The thing is, though, we cannot afford to make them an adversary in the process of moving forward. That's why I think the military debate is so important at this point, because some people recognize you want to have all the different components available to you to do things at the same time. The last thing you want to do is actually do something which will enable the theocracy to actually clamp down even more on the people. And that's the issue right now that I'm being told is really kind of the thing that's pushing people back. Now, regarding the history, let me be very clear for your audience so they understand. Look, when I was in Afghanistan, and this is my book, Dark Heart, we found the Iranians were up to no good as early as '03. There's 2 chapters devoted to an interrogation of a U.S. citizen who was of Iranian descent. His brother was working for the IRGC, and his brother was there in eastern Afghanistan on the opposite side of the country from Iran, paying people to stir up trouble against us. So let me be very clear here. I'm not pro-Iranian by any circumstance of the imagination. I have seen what these people, what the Iranian IRGC has been doing to try to kill our soldiers. So there's no way in heck that I would ever come out for the Iranians. With that said, I think we have to understand that we're playing a chess game, and simply pushing our military towards a kinetic solution is not the best solution here. And what concerns me is that this, as you mentioned in the introduction, this operation just smells, this assassination concept smells of a plot. And let me tell you something, this is an exclusive for you guys. And I got to tell you, I was at my publisher yesterday in New York City, and I actually asked him, did you guys leak the outline of my next book? Because frankly, a lot of the stuff that's in this current plot is actually in a plot line we're working on in my next book. So I got to be honest with you, Alex, I was flabbergasted when I saw this, materialize in the press, because much of this is not only like a Hollywood script. Frankly, we were looking at doing something in fiction which mimics very closely what's going on in this so-called plot. So that's what made me just sit up and say, wow, there's something really wacky about this. And that
well, Colonel Schaefer, for those that don't know, a lot of times different agencies, even different governments, will use plot lines to actually carry out real attacks or fake attacks. They will also, as has been admitted for 12 years that I know of, the Pentagon, the CIA actually pay script writers to write scripts for them, quote, to be able to imagine what terrorists might do. So the fact that you went to your publisher when you were in New York to be on MSNBC yesterday, because I know you were there, you couldn't come on here yesterday, and that you're saying maybe somebody leaked your script and that maybe the White House used it. Is that what you're getting at?
Well, it may be, because, there's so many parallels there to this thing. And, if frankly, what we're looking at here is a plot where 24 meets the Sopranos, which makes me, obviously it's great for fiction, but I think the reality of which we're faced with is entirely different. And let me tell you, as an intelligence professional, this used car salesman would be the last individual in the world that I, as a professional intelligence officer, would direct to get in contact with a drug group to become a group of assassins. Let me tell you, on the face of that, that is beyond any operational knowledge that any intelligence officer would do. You just don't trust someone with that lack of focus and training to do something that would be that key and critical to an assassination plot. It's just not done. So
wouldn't you normally go after well-performing former military people or doctors or engineers or people that have shown that they're focused and professional?
there's a term, and you've used it before, called vetting. One of the key elements of any successful intelligence operation, you can ask Bob Baer this. Bob would probably tell you the same thing. The key to a successful intelligence operation is vetting of an asset, to make sure that you test them adequately to make sure that they will do your bidding